Number 9. The SVT-40 Sniper. The Tokarev SVT-40 was supposed to be the Soviet Union's leap into modern warfare, a semi-automatic battle rifle that would replace the aging Mosin-Nagant entirely. Designed by Fyodor Tokarev and entering mass production in 1940, it chambered the 7.62 by 54 mm rimmed cartridge and fed from a 10-round detachable box magazine. By the end of 1941, over 1 million had rolled off Soviet production lines. When the Red Army fitted a 3.5 power PU scope to select examples and deployed them as sniper rifles, the concept looked credible on paper. In practice, it failed at every level that mattered. Issues with stock fitment and barrel tolerances caused erratic cold-bore shot placement, meaning the very first shot of any engagement, the most critical one a sniper takes, was unreliable. After sustained fire, shot dispersion opened to levels that made precision work impossible. The Soviet military officially abandoned the SVT-40 sniper program in 1942, deleting scope rails from all subsequent production to save manufacturing time. What should have been the foundation of a modern Soviet sniper program instead became one of the most expensive failed experiments of the war, replaced by a rifle that had been in service since the 19th century. Number 8. The Type 99 Sniper. Japan's second purpose-built sniper rifle arrived in 1942 and represented a genuine step forward from its predecessor. Based on the standard Type 99 infantry rifle, it chambered the 7.7 by 58 mm Arisaka round, a significantly more powerful cartridge than the 6.5 mm used in earlier Japanese sniper designs. The sniper variant was fitted with either a 2.5 power or 4 power telescopic sight, produced by manufacturers including Tomioka Kogaku and the Tokyo First Arsenal, and incorporated a bent, angled bolt handle to clear the optic. The rifle measured 45 inches in overall length with a 5-round internal magazine. With the 4-power scope, effective range extended to approximately 1,500 meters. In reality, production capacity strangled its operational impact. Between 1942 and the end of the war, only approximately 11,000 were completed, a fraction of what the Imperial Japanese Army needed across the Pacific theater. By the time the Type 99 sniper existed in any meaningful quantity, Japan's experienced sniper corps had already suffered severe attrition, and the logistical situation across most theaters made resupply of specialized equipment unreliable. It was a technically competent design delivered too late, in too few numbers, to change a war already trending against the nation that built it. Number 7. The Type 97 Sniper. Japan's first purpose-built sniper rifle entered service in 1937, the product of combat experience gained during the Manchurian campaigns. Built on the Type 38 action, a design drawing heavily from Mauser principles, and chambered in 6.5 by 50 mm Arisaka, it was fitted with a 2.5 power telescopic sight and a downward-angled bolt handle. Approximately 23,000 were produced between 1938 and 1943. In the early Pacific campaigns, Japanese snipers built a formidable reputation through exceptional concealment and fieldcraft, and the rifle contributed to that reputation. Its low muzzle flash and smokeless propellant made firing positions difficult to detect. However, the Type 97 carried a design compromise that limited its ceiling. The scope was mounted offset to the left of the receiver to allow stripper clip loading, which introduced parallax issues and complicated aim at longer distances. The 6.5 mm cartridge lacked the energy to engage targets reliably beyond approximately 400 meters. As Allied counter-sniper tactics matured through 1943 and 1944, those constraints became liabilities. Japan's snipers were never undermined by a lack of skill. They were undermined by the tools they were issued. Number 6, the M1903A4 Springfield. The United States Army entered World War II without a dedicated sniper rifle, and the M1903A4 was its attempt to correct that gap quickly. A modified version of the existing 1903A3, it had its iron sights removed entirely and replaced with a centrally mounted 2.5 power Weaver 330C scope, designated the M73B1 in military service. Remington Arms produced all 28,000 examples across just 2 years, 1943 and 1944. The central mount was a deliberate choice. It eliminated the windage inconsistencies associated with offset prismatic mounts used by other nations. Effective range was approximately 550 meters, limited primarily by the scope's low magnification. The Army's own assessment acknowledged the rifle's shortcomings. No backup iron sights were fitted, meaning a damaged scope produced an unusable weapon. The commercial-grade Weaver optic was not moisture-resistant, a serious liability in the Pacific. No additional precision work was performed at the factory. Rifles came off the line at standard service tolerances with no accuracy selection. The M1903A4 was a rapid, functional solution to a problem the Army had deferred for years. It served in every theater, but it never overcame the limitations built into it from the start. Number 5. The USMC M1903, a one with Unertl scope. While the Army was building a sniper rifle it could hand to 10,000 men, the Marine Corps was building something different. In 1941, the Marines adopted the 1903A1, fitted with an 8-power Unertl telescopic sight, one of the highest magnification sniper optics fielded by any military force during the war. The combination gave Marine snipers an optical advantage at range that the Army's 2.5 power glass could not approach. The Unertl operated on an external adjustment system. Rather than internal windage and elevation mechanisms, the scope sat in rings and was physically pushed back into battery after each shot to absorb recoil. In the hands of a trained marksman, it was devastatingly effective. That requirement for training and care captures both the system's strength and its limitations. The Unertl was fragile under Pacific field conditions, where humidity, sand, and rough handling were constants. Numbers were small, replacements were scarce, and a failed optic had no standard substitute. The Army solved the sniper problem at scale. The Marines solved it to a higher standard for far fewer men. The Unertl platform, for all its optical superiority, was a surgical instrument rather than a field-deployable system. Number 4. The Gewehr 43 Sniper. Germany needed a semi-automatic rifle to answer the Soviet SVT-40 on the Eastern Front. Walther delivered the Gewehr 43 in 1943, a gas-operated design that reverse-engineered key elements of the SVT's short-stroke piston system. Chambered in 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser and fed from a 10-round detachable box magazine, it entered service with a machined dovetail receiver rail purpose-built for optical mounting. Between 1943 and 1945, 402,713 total were produced. Of those, at least 53,435 were completed as sniper variants fitted with the 4-power Zielfernrohr 43 scope. The semi-automatic action gave designated marksmen a rate of fire that bolt-action snipers could not replicate in fluid, medium-range engagements. German doctrine assigned 3 Gewehr 43s per infantry platoon, with 2 issued as scoped rifles. Its limitation was precision at extreme range. The gas-operated action introduced more mechanical movement than a lock bolt, and veteran German snipers consistently preferred the Kar-98K beyond 500 meters. But in the designated marksman role it was designed for, accurate, rapid fire at the platoon level, the Gewehr 43 delivered. Where the Soviets scaled through bolt actions and numbers, Germany found its answer in a rifle that could shoot back faster. Number 3, the Karabiner 98K sniper. No rifle is more synonymous with the German military sniper than the Kar-98K. Adopted as the Wehrmacht's standard infantry rifle in 1935, it was chambered in 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser, weighed 8.8 pounds unloaded, and measured 43.7 inches overall. Sniper variants were not purpose-built. Rifles demonstrating exceptional accuracy during factory testing were pulled from the production line, fitted with telescopic sights, and issued as precision weapons. The primary optic was the 4-power Zeiss ZF-39, with bullet drop compensation calibrated in 50-meter increments from 100 to 1,000 meters. Additional glass in service included the 6-power Zeiss ZF-42, the Kalas Heliavier 4-power, and the Hensoldt Dilaton 4-power. A skilled sniper with ZF-39 glass could hit a standing man at 600 meters, with harassment fire extending to 1,000. The rifle's weakness was institutional rather than mechanical. Germany never standardized its scope and mount system, fielding multiple competing designs simultaneously across different units and fronts, a logistical and cross-training problem that undermined an otherwise elite program. Over 14 million Kar-98Ks were produced during the war. The platform was never scarce. The quality glass to put on it was another matter entirely. Number 2, the Mosin-Nagant M91 30PU sniper. No other nation in World War II built snipers at the scale the Soviet Union did. The M9130 entered service in 1930 as a modernized Mosin-Nagant, chambered in 7.62 by 54 mm rimmed, a powerful cartridge the Russian military had relied on since 1891. To create the sniper variant, production inspectors selected rifles with the highest quality barrels, turned down the bolt handle to clear the optic, and fitted scopes to the receiver. Early war variants used a 4-power PE or PEM scope. The PEM itself reverse-engineered from German Zeiss optics. In 1942, The program standardized on the 3.5 power PU scope, a more compact and rugged design suited to Eastern Front conditions. By 1942, the Soviet Union was manufacturing 53,000 PU sniper rifles annually, a figure that would more than quintuple. By 1943, Soviet production peaked at over 275,000 sniper rifles in a single year. Total wartime output exceeded 330,000. No other nation came close. The training program matched production volume. A formal sniper school system produced marksmen who became the foundation of a doctrine that inflicted genuine psychological damage on German forces across the Eastern Front. Snipers like Vasily Zaitsev became national symbols. The PU scope was not the finest optic of the war. It was rugged, functional, and built to survive conditions that would have destroyed more refined instruments. The Mosin PU sniper won not on precision, but on scale. 53,000 new rifles per year, backed by men who knew exactly what to do with them. Number 1. The Lee-Enfield No. 4. Mark 1T, the British No. 4. Mark 1T is the most complete sniper system produced by any nation during World War II. The conversion program was contracted to Holland Holland, the prestigious London gunmaker, beginning in the autumn of 1942. The process was rigorous. Rifles were first selected for above-average accuracy at the factory, then sent to Holland Holland, where a cheek-piece riser was fitted to the butt, and a No. 32 Mk3. 3.5 power telescopic sight was mounted in a purpose-designed two-piece bracket. That mount's defining characteristics set it apart from every competitor on this list. It could be dismounted and remounted without requiring re-zeroing. No other major power's wartime sniper rifle offered that capability reliably. Between November 1942 and April 1946, Holland Holland completed 23,177 conversions. The No. 32 scope included a bullet drop compensator drum calibrated in 50-yard increments out to 1,000 yards, giving British snipers a precise elevation reference across the full engagement envelope. The No. 4 Mark I also retained the standard Lee-Enfield 10-round magazine, twice the capacity of every other bolt-action sniper rifle on this list, providing follow-up shot capability no competitor could match. It served with British and Canadian forces across Northwest Europe, Italy, and the Far East, remaining in active sniper service through Korea. When the question of the finest sniper system of the Second World War is raised, the answer is rarely debated for long. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop a comment. See you on the next one.